Welcome. My name is Crystal Andrus Morissette, and I couldn't be more excited about being here today. I don't even know what that extra echo was. Did you just hear that, Nicole?
Yes, I
I,
did.
you know what? It's just our energy. We have so much energy. And today I'm so excited to be featuring this week's Simply Woman superstar. And she's not only a superstar, she's become a dear friend of mine. And so I want to introduce you to Miss Nicole. No, I always do that to her. Nicole LaRoche. I'm like, you're French and you're Canadian, and we got to make it sound like Nicole LaRoche.
Yeah,
And
bring it
I'm,
on. I love it.
I'm loving Nicole LaRoche. Nicole is also an emotional communications expert. She's a PR strategist, a diversity and inclusion advocate, so needed right now, and a certified empowerment coach through my school, the SWAT Institute. She's recently launched her own boutique communications consulting firm called Spark Maven, and Nicole is the Spark Maven, and she's been a Spark Maven long before she launched this amazing communication firm that I've been a part of with Nicole for the last year. So, Nicole, we're going to dive right in. How did you become the gorgeous Spark Maven?
Wow. Well, thank you, first of all, Crystal, for giving me this opportunity to have my moment in the sun with this amazing community of yours. So thank you for that. My background, basically, I've always had a love for the stage and really hearing compelling messages or even being behind the scenes crafting them for other people so that they can go out there, deliver something that's memorable, connecting with an audience, and letting them be inspired by the magic of their message. So, from a very early age, one thing I never told you about is I was in a pageant, Miss Teen Caribbean.
Oh,
Back
you were. Oh, that's so
then.
exciting.
And that was my first opportunity to be on stage and really command the crowd and really win them over. I ended up coming as a second place runner up, but it was such an exhilarating experience. And after the pageant, people were coming up to me, little children were touching me, my face, and just hugging me. And I realized how much power one could have commanding the stage and really connecting with an audience. So that started to follow me throughout my career. In the sense, actually, before my career, I was actually a public relations officer for a church I was a part of, where I did a lot of outreach, and it was really
Oh,
exciting. Really outreaching to young people and inspiring them. And that's where I started to find my voice and realize, hey, this is something that I really enjoy doing. So from there, I pursued communications in university. I got my degree in communication studies and French studies, and then went on to do post grad in corporate communication, and then master's certification in marketing, leadership communication. So communications has always been at the heart and of what I do, and also I feel a calling for myself.
yeah. And it's interesting because this isn't our first Facebook Live. We actually did a Facebook Live. I think it was maybe a year and a half ago. I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that. And that's when I first met you. And you had signed up to do my empowerment coach certification. And Nanto was saying, hello, hi, Nicola Roche from Nanto. And I had put out the call just to any student to say, hey, no one can share the school better than a student or a graduate of the school. So does anyone want to do a Facebook Live? And you were the first woman that we'd never met. I didn't know how gorgeous you were. I didn't know you were a Black woman. I didn't know. And I say that just because now, with what's gone on in the world and how much you've even taught me in this last year and a half, how close we've become. But you came on and I was instantly mesmerized on our first Facebook Live, just the way you commanded a Facebook Live, the way you showed up with there was something really magnetic about you. And um, I just knew and who knew that a year and a half later, here we'd be like besties. I make jokes about it, but who knew? And
Right.
then you came to my retreat a year ago at my home in September. You signed up to my millionaire mastermind group,
Mhm.
and we spent a year together doing masterminding and building. But Nicole, I want to give it back to you because I feel like I have finessed the way I communicate, and I'm a communications expert too. I don't, that's just energy. Honest to God, I don't know what those little sounds are. I never get that. But of course I would get it with you because we have a lot of energy. I'm a communications expert, but you came in and each week we would meet, we'd be live on video doing our masterminding. And I would just see the way you would show up and the way you would articulate and the way you communicated. And I just want to say thank you so much for what you brought to my life as well, because it is mutual. I don't know why we're getting a little hum, but let's just keep going.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you to you because you really have influenced the way that I show up as well in the world. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Healing is obviously mutual. For me, it's been quite a journey of self-discovery for me. And what's really exciting for me is the whole communications aspect that I've learned from you. So as I mentioned before,
we'll just keep loving on each other. I know from you.
Oh, seriously, because again, like when I talked about school, I learned about mass communication theory. I learned about corporate writing, corporate communications, marketing communications. But kind of like, if you work out and you're working a muscle group. So let's say your deltoids, your shoulders. There's 3 muscles that you're trying to hit. You're trying to hit the front, the side, and the back. And you do different exercises to develop those muscles. And I felt when I came to this program, which I didn't realize at the time, there was a part of my communications repertoire that was missing. And that was the emotional side.
Okay.
And I have to say, maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, is that when I decided to take your coaching program, and then there was an opportunity to take your 12-week emotional edge program, the 1-2 punch with that was incredible because I learned so much about what is empowered communications, what is the communication scale, and how are you showing up. Because
it would have been fascinating for you, especially because you were already a communications expert.
Right.
So that would have been fascinating when I think about it. You're a lifelong learner anyways, but yeah, that would have been really fascinating for you to have another tool in your communication toolkit.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I learned so much about my own communication skills and how I was showing up in the world. So if I take it back, prior to coming to the, SWAT Institute, I had this life where, growing up, I was very close to my dad. We were thick as thieves. We just loved each other so much. Very close relationship. However, I lost him very early to an aneurysm when I was 22. And what I didn't realize is that he was my confidence builder, the wind beneath my wings. He was my knight in shining armor. He was just my cheerleader. And when he passed away, things shifted for me. I became very upset and bitter and angry because I thought, well, I plan to spend the rest of my life with my dad, taking care of him when he got old and, just hanging out and just enjoying life. And what ended up happening is that was cut. And I had to figure out who I was at the time without him. What do I want to do with my life? And do I even really matter? Because I knew that he brought something to my life that was validating me. So in hindsight, when I look back, I was looking out externally for validation as opposed to validating myself. But that realization didn't come right away. So after he passed, I was in my books studying and going through life rushing, not enjoying the moment. It's just kind of like, hurry up, get it done. Okay, you're supposed to go to school. You're supposed to do these things. And I was just rushing through life and not really getting to know myself through it. I lost somebody I loved. I had to just keep it moving and not recognize how much pain I was suffering underneath.
You know, Nicole, it's interesting though, and I can't believe my little dogs. If you can hear snoring, I literally have little dogs that have decided to sleep and snore at my feet. But I think for a lot of us who have gone through trauma, it isn't until, you know, for you and I both, we, I know if someone would have said to me, "You are so driven, Crystal, because you're avoiding dealing with pain," I actually would have thought, I don't even know what you're talking. I deal with pain every day. I'm a communication expert. I help women heal. But part of your success did come from you putting your head down and almost barreling through with just a fierceness to accomplish and prove you were somebody on some level. And I know you and I can both see that now that we're wise women that are, you know, on the other side of the success where we've come through it. We've worked hard. We've hit every accomplishment. We've hit all the markers. We've made the money. We've done the things. And for you, I don't know if that's, if, is that my messenger? Like no one,
My phone.
I think it's your phone maybe dinging you. Someone's sending you messages.
Don't ding me, please. Thank you.
Don't ding Nicole, because every time you ding, you're dinging your computer. But it wasn't until you had, I hope it's okay for me to say it in this way, but it was until you had your first almost, and it wasn't a failure. It allowed you to actually create this new world and this new way of being in your own boutique consulting firm. But it was probably the first time when you came up against that woman that you worked with. And I can't believe I'm just gonna dive into it. But,
yeah, let's go.
You finally came up against this woman who just pushed and wanted to dull your shine and dull you down and water you down. And in essence, try to get rid of you away from what you did in your career. And do you think that was the first time that it really hit you almost like tell me about that? And maybe you can share the experience with others, because you had this wildly successful career. You were incredibly focused on your career. You hadn't gotten married. You were driven. I say you're like Olivia Pope, because I'm finally watching Scandal. You're like a management woman. You're tough, you're fierce, you're strong, you're articulate, you're well educated, and you put so much into your career. And in your very, very early 40s or late 30s is when you really started to experience this pushback.
Yeah.
You climbed so high in the corporate ladder that now there's only one or two women at the boardroom table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
yeah. So with that experience, I think in the early days in my career, I was steamrolling ahead. I was growing in my career. The trajectory was just going upward and onward. And then what happened was I found myself in an interesting dynamic that I never experienced before, and kind of took for granted the relationships I had cultivated throughout my career. I always thought it would just go this way, where I connect with people, do great work, they recognize what my capabilities are, and I would be moving on to the next level and the next level. Well, what happened was I was in an organization for almost 10 years, and what had happened was I had grown. I had learned so many things. I've made positive impacts in terms of the contributions I've made, what I built within the organization. And then there was a shift. We had new leadership come in. And like I said in our last Facebook Live, the leader that was running the department, the executive, had a very different view in terms of what her immediate team would look like. And as a result, over time, and I didn't know the language for it back then, but I was being shut out. I was being excluded. My salary was in question in terms of why is she making so much money? Or when I was doing incredible work with the CEO, it was almost like I was getting punished for it. It's like, we got to take that away from her. She's doing all this high profile stuff. And soon, over time, things were being stripped away from me, not clear communication about what was happening. And every day I was going into work with this dread, with this stress, because not only did I have to deal with a team that excluded me from doing work that I loved, I had a team under me that I had to be their leader that they looked to. And I had to be strong for them. And I had to be able to tell them what was going on. It was very difficult to do when I was being shut out. So over time, what was happening is I didn't love my work. I was there for my staff to advocate for them, make sure that we had a great team environment. So at least that's one piece that we could hold on to and deliver amazing quality work. But then what was really happening, it's kind of like that analogy or that story from linguistic, he's a American linguist and cognitive, I can't remember, cognitive scientist, Noam Chomsky said, talked about that whole idea about the frog and the pot, right? Like if it's boiling hot, the frog will leap out immediately. However, if it's tepid water and over time you turn up the temperature, you boil to death. The frog boils to death.
Yeah. And doesn't even know he's boiling to death.
It doesn't. And that was exactly what's happening to me. I was dying a slow death. I didn't want to leave because it was secure, the golden handcuff where you had the benefits, the vacation time, the salary, but it came at a price and it was sucking the life out of me. So over time, there were some budget cuts, and then my department was dismantled, and I was let go. And the way I was let go, it was very nasty. I think that it really broke me in a way where I didn't realize how much my identity was tied to my career. Yeah. And I didn't know what that meant for me, because during that time, my confidence was being eroded. I wasn't speaking up as much because there was nobody listening, and I was dying inside. But
I just want to share, Kay Dewan says, the fresh face syndrome, new leadership phasing out high qualified and well-paid productive employees and replacing them with less qualified and paying less to the replacements. So in a sense, you experience, I want to just jump ahead. I'm jumping around a little bit, but this past year, not only in the last 2 years did you go back to, get more education on top of everything you were already doing, you also went back to Cornell University and took a diversity and inclusion certification. And only because we've become such good friends, we had so many conversations through that was also going through this extremely traumatic time, especially for people of color, with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd's death and everything that happened over the summer. And at the same time, you're going through this diversity and inclusion training. Did it start to give you words to understand what actually was happening to you?
Absolutely. I felt at the end of May when the Amy Cooper incident, and the George Floyd, all of them folded into the suite. It really broke me. Not that I haven't seen, Black racism or systemic racism in the past. It was just the blatant display of racism right before my eyes that we just see a Black life being discarded so easily. And it was really interesting because that week I was working with a client and I had to keep it together. Keep it moving, be professional. But I was dying inside. I was traumatized by what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And then I had a meltdown at one of our mastermind group calls where I just couldn't.
Yeah. And just to be fair, I don't think you had a meltdown. You just expressed your emotions in a safe place to say, this is what that group was for.
Yeah. And I needed a place to just release. And I didn't know how it was going to come. I thought I was going to be in my bed or, quietly doing it. And it just, all the emotions came out of me. And it was from that moment, as someone who's a communicator, I realized not only that it's really important to have a voice, because I saw a lot of young people, a lot of young Black women out there advocating for Black lives and being a voice for their community. But I was wondering, were they being heard? Were they being heard? Because my message with my company is all about getting your message out there. You know, be the spark or be the change that you want to see. And here are these young people out there pouring their hearts out and giving their all, and their messages are so compelling. And were they being heard? And it just made me feel, my goodness, I really need to rethink how I want to show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What was happening to me over the years, because this was something that had been built up over time. And a lot of people in the corporate world, women, men, were sharing their experiences. Yeah. And I realized, oh my gosh, there's so many of us who have suffered at the hands of systemic racism, microaggressions, the whole list. And I realized there was something I needed to do. So not only help people, optimize their message and amplify their messages on their platforms, but also I need to work within organizations to help them dismantle systemic racism in some way, shape, or form. I'm a community leader. I work with leaders. They have messages to share with their employees. How can I help influence that? And so I decided I'd go to Cornell, and it was kind of like a PTSD.
Yes.
Then I had to recount certain experiences that were examples that I had to share in my course. And I had the language now for it. And then I had to realize and give myself some love and comfort, because I had gone through so much, not thinking there was something wrong with me all the time, always second guessing myself, not speaking up anymore. And in fact, I was in an environment that made it very unsafe for me to thrive.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. It just takes so much courage to have a voice, tell the truth, speak up against what we've experienced. Someone wrote, what about systemic sexism? Well, that's true too. But, for Nicole, you not only had the double whammy of being a woman climbing the corporate ladder, you were also a Black woman climbing the corporate ladder. So you had this double whammy, and you didn't have the words. Well, just like for me, in a completely different way. And I always want to be very careful not to be like, but what about? Because that's not what we're talking about right now. But when the Me Too movement came out for me, because I had endured so much sexual abuse and sexual harassment in the workplace, and it gave me words too. And I was already this expert and woman's advocate, but it suddenly gave me permission. I felt like I can talk about these things now without looking like a lunatic. I can actually talk about these things now that have happened to me without looking like I'm trying to rock the boat, be difficult, blame my femininity or blame my gender for why that thing happened, when I knew for sure that's what was happening to me. So this gave you also, and I think it's so important that women like us and women like you have a platform now to share it, because you just nailed it when you say you're seeing the younger generation doing it, but what about our generation of women and women older than us? We want to be able to give them the liberation and the freedom and the permission to tell their stories, and to really share it. I would love if anyone right now, don't leave us, but open a new window and go to www.sparkmaven.com and be amazed by this woman's magnificent website that I helped you put together. We've spent a long time working on this and wanting to get it right, because like I said, the minute I met you, and I do have a knack for seeing the it factor. I do. I have a little knack for being able to go, wow, this is a really special person. This is a really special woman. So I've been so deeply honored to be able to work with you, and not just for what we've gone through this past summer, and not just around, Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement and women being able to express themselves in a way where we're being heard, but the excitement that I have with your work on slaying the stage and really using storytelling to influence and inspire and ignite other people. So let's talk also about the work that you're doing with your consulting firm and how people can find you and what your your big dreams are for your next steps, because you are just getting started. All of that was truly just like training for you. Or as my doctor of Chinese medicine says to me, the initiations you've gone through, Crystal. And I go, I love that you call it initiations, almost like you're going to be this fierce goddess warrior in the world. You have to have gone through some initiations and to have come through it the other side. So I want to just turn it back over to you to talk about, your new business, sparkmaven.com,
Mhm.
and what you're going to do with other savvy entrepreneurs and trailblazers and leaders.
Yeah, so thank you for that plug. So really, I'm really here to be a light connector. It's really nothing makes me more excited than seeing people light up the stage and inspire other people with their stories. There's this small window of genius that I see happen when I've worked with leaders or keynote speakers, prepping them, and that moment right before they hit the stage when they just turn on and they're on fire and they're ready to slay. And that is what gives me the excitement, and that's why I slay the stage, because that they're prepped, they're confident, and they're ready to make that moment, that time on stage, memorable. And so for me, it's really about continuing that work, helping other leaders, executives, thought leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs really hone their message, really figure out what is it they want to share, and let's be clear about it. And also use it to, ignite something in the audience, inspire the audience and amplify that message in a bigger way. So it doesn't just have to be at that stage. What social media tools?
Right. I was just going to say, with right now with COVID,
Yeah.
everyone who is so used to being on stage and who thrived on stage and who needs to be on stage, I can only imagine that a lot of them are starting to get like a little crazy, because when it's your purpose, when it's your dharma, when it's what you're meant to do, it mentally can be very depressing to lose that in-person audience, the excitement. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the ways that you can support entrepreneurs and leaders in other ways, because the stage is also what we're doing. This is the stage. We're on stage.
Yeah. So there's a mindset piece as well, right? So prior to having that message honed, it's really about helping leaders. And some of them are just so talented at what they do, whatever expertise they bring to the table, but they may not know how to connect with others or really tell a story that's authentic from the heart about themselves. Because sometimes people are guarded, they have a wall. And what I'm trying to do is help them understand that audiences are more savvy now. We want real stories. And sometimes that requires digging deep within. And so my job in that sense is really helping a lot of my clients get that mindset, that communications mindset, that empowered mindset, that mindset mastery that will enable them to show up confident and ready to share and be vulnerable to an extent.
Tell me about your 5 pillars. I'm totally throwing you. I don't even know if you know them off the top of your head. And if you don't, it's okay. I'm going to go to your website and pull it up. But you have 5 main pillars that that is sort of your expertise. Do you remember them?
So there's mindset mastery. So that's kind of like what I talked about before, where there's that empowering your mindset, right? The other piece to that is really looking at your communications. What is your strategy? How do you want to engage people? What are your objectives, and how can I help you achieve them? The other piece is also looking at what is your message, like building out that message so that we have key messages that hit on those milestones in terms of the communication strategy that's developed. There's also the PR side of it, right? There's the public relations side where we're looking at where are there opportunities to elevate your presence, to amplify your voice, and get media exposure. And then another piece to that, we also have to look at proactively crisis and issues management, those types of pieces as well. And I'm probably picking from all of the.
You're totally, yeah, you're totally. And then what's your C-suite? Okay, so I actually went on there, and even though I'm an entrepreneur, I've always just been like, I don't even know what C-suite is.
Yeah.
What's C-suite? What is that?
That's the corporate CIOs, CEOs, chief marketing officers. So that's where the C comes from. So those corporate executives at the top level, and really helping them as well with sticky situations within their organization. They need to have employee engagement. They need to be able to rally the troops so they can not only hit their targets, but let their employees feel that they're contributing, they're part of something bigger, so that they in turn can be seen as a people leader, and also be seen as a trailblazer in building a healthy, productive culture for their employees.
Yeah, company culture. So you do it all. You do it not only in like corporations and Fortune 500 companies. You'll also work with one-on-one, whether it was me, say as an author and a speaker, or you would work with a celebrity, or would you work with somebody new that's just coming? I mean, where are you at in terms of like somebody brand new? And of course, Kay says, I bet she knows all 5 pillars. She's on her A game. Of course she does. Kay. Of course she does know what she's doing. C-suite. Do you work with men as well? Kay wants to know, do you work with men as well?
I do. I've had a lot of clients that are men.
And I still probably love you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? They just, not men specifically, but I think the clients that I've had have been leaders in their space. I'm more gravitate. We have a great synergy in terms of having somebody that has built a platform to a degree, but they want to take it to the next level. And I'm going to help them change up the game, get them limber and loose, because what they've been doing before, it's worked, but now we want to take it up a notch. And the field has changed, and I want to be able to help them navigate through that and find new ways to even reinvent themselves. So I tend to look at a lot of executive leaders, a lot of influencers who have a presence that are continuing to build their brand, as well as a lot of entrepreneurs who have an established business. And depending on their needs, I like to kind of get a sense of where you're at in terms of your business development, so that I can see whether or not we're an ideal fit to.
And you can build sort of a la carte packages for people.
Yes.
You might be able to pick and choose and say, well, you only need pillar 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to focus over here. So if someone's again watching today for the first time, www.spark Maven. She's the Spark Maven. You get Nicole, hopefully herself, and if not, someone on her team that knows is really, really good. But Nicole, we can't end our conversation today without talking about our golden girl, Ava.
Oh, yes. Ava, my daughter, my sunshine. And, I honestly, when I wanted to become a mom, I thought I would have a boy. I didn't want to know the sex of the baby when I was pregnant. And I thought, my maternal instincts were kicking in. I'm having a boy. And then, of course, I had a daughter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with a girl? and you know what? It's been the best experience ever. It's like a mini me. And we're just so in love with each other. And she's my inspiration. And
she's your new greatest fan, you lost your dad young, but little Miss Ava came along, and she is truly your greatest fan, your biggest cheerleader now.
My biggest. And
I love when we talked about it and you said, I was getting at a certain point in my life, in my career, where I was at, that I had to make a decision. Do I want to wait around and become a wife, or do I want to be a mother? And you really are one of those super women. Like, you're a superhero where you have it all. You've got the amazing career. You've got your gorgeous daughter who we just love. Okay, you have to say something the way Ava would say it. The way Ava talks.
Oh my gosh. She just, I don't know. She just says, hi, mommy, or you're talking to Crystal again. You like her, do you? You really, really like her. I don't know. That's
I know, little Ava. She's just so
happy to see me happy. So
she's a little mini you. She's special. And boy, times have changed now, even for you having to, on top of being a single parent, you're homeschooling and it's not easy. How do you do it all? How do you do it all? You have a 9-year-old, beautiful girl, but now you're doing what a lot of moms are doing, and you're full time.
Well, you know what? She's actually back at school now, physically. Okay. So, fortunately, her school is very stringent in terms of their protocols for COVID. However, when everything was under lockdown, that was really trying. Me working from home, being on conference calls while she's on conference calls as well, and they are singing songs, and and I'm trying to, get
nail it.
Like, oh, I'm sorry. Or my daughter comes in the room, she's like, hi, who's that? But fortunately, the people I worked with, they were understanding, and they were going through that too, right? Some of them are sandwich generation folks where they had their parents, elderly parents, and their kids at home with them. So we all had to be nimble, but it was tough. It was tough, and I'm glad that she's back at school. However, I'm anxious at times, just given the stats in terms of how COVID cases are continuing to rise again with the second wave. But I've been handling it as best as I can.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I just want to tell you how much I love you. I love working with you. I'm so happy you found me, that we're in each other's world. There's lots of great comments and questions. Homeschooling and balancing work life is a segment all on its own, Crystal, and isn't that the truth? But Nicole, I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds, the last minute. Take the floor. You have the best words, just like you just popped out, nimble. Like, when have I heard, they all just have to be a little nimble. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say we all just have to be a little nimble.
Yeah,
I really kind of stuff you get with Nicole Roche. She teaches you words like how to just throw nimble into the sentence with such grace and ease.
You're too kind. At the end of the day, I'm all about everyone's voice being heard. And we all have a story within us to share. And sometimes you may hesitate. And I'm saying don't, because there's somebody out there. There are people, in fact, out there who are waiting for your message. And always keep that in mind. Your voice has power. And use it. Because I know I am. And one of the things I've learned is that I'm not serving anyone just hiding in the background. I need to step up and shine. And I'm asking everybody here to give that some thought. Your voice is your superpower. Time to shine.
Yes, absolutely amazing. To learn more about Nicole, you can read the article I wrote about Nicole Roche on our magazine, simplywoman.com. Of course, you also heard Nicole give some kudos to some of my work. So if you'd like to learn more about the Emotional Edge course, we are only just in week 3 of a 12-week course, the Emotional Edge. You can learn about me and my courses, including my Empowerment Coach certification at www.swatinstitute.com. Yes, we are the Special Weapons and Tactical Simply Woman accredited trainer, and we're going to heal the world one woman at a time. And of course, finally, make sure that you find Nicole on Instagram, where she loves to put fun posts. She's got her website, www.sparkmaven.com. Fill out her intake questionnaire on her packages page. And if you seem like a good fit, Nicole will get back in touch with you and arrange a time for you to chat and see how she can help support you in igniting, influencing, and amplifying your message. Thank you so much, my darling.
Thank you. Love you. Honor. I love you too. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you. And we're going to be back next week with another Simply Woman superstar. And until then, be safe, have fun, and make good choices. Bye, everyone. Love you.
Bye.